dear friends, I hope you had wonderful joint hand sessions this morning. I saw many people actively engaging. That was really rewarding because there has been so many people preparing for these small working sessions, and thank you all who did that. It was wonderful. One of the journeys of ACT Alliance in this first 4 years has been the creation of ACT Forums. We have worked in national forums. There is around 55 national forums, and some regional forums have also been created during this time. I think we all know that there are different experiences of engaging in ACT forums. Some forums produce really fruitful joint agendas. They are ambitious in their joint response to an emergency. They advocate. They work together with the National Councils of Churches to keep the governments accountable to their commitments and produce in other ways also very fruitful capacity development initiatives which benefit all who engage in the forum. Some other forums are a bit more difficult. There may be trust issues. There may be some sticking points why the forum can't really move from a very formalistic get-together into the engagement mode. Well, this morning, before we go to the regional reports, we wanted to share with you the journey from our forums in Latin America and the Caribbean, and I would like to introduce Tomasita Montano and Javier Rivera, who are going to share their story with you.
Gracias, muy buenos días. Bueno, vamos a presentar un poco sobre este tema que es bien importante. En la primera lámina podemos ver algo sobre la realidad de la violencia que vive Latinoamérica. Y una expresión era las maras en El Salvador. Voy a ir muy rápido porque las láminas van rápido. Lo otro es el tema de víctimas por conflicto. El otro que está ahorita es el cambio de política de gobierno, y eso podíamos ver tanto los ejemplos que se han dado en El Salvador, Venezuela, Bolivia. Luego también tenemos la problemática de cambio climático. Como ustedes saben, lo de la roya en el café, sequía, que se está afectando en las producciones agrícolas y todo eso. Luego hay algo bien importante que es la respuesta de la Alianza en América Latina, el Caribe, el trabajo con los gobiernos, y aquí podemos ver también el trabajo que se hace con los gobiernos, con el Ministerio de Cooperación. Ahí hay una lámina que presenta eso, pero aparte de eso hay acciones que se desarrollaron en el evento que se dio en El Salvador, y ahí podemos ver los temas que se abordaron: la cooperación sur-sur, la incidencia, la creación del Centro Ecuménico para Justicia Climática. Es importante también recalcar las relaciones que se han dado con personales políticas regionales, hay ejemplos en Guatemala y otros países. También la movilización de prensa que se dio, la relación con líderes regionales y religiosos y políticos, y también ahora hay nuevos retos, que es la migración, entre otros aspectos.
En las láminas pudieron presenciar que la capacidad de ACT de poder empezar a incidir en nuevos gobiernos, incidir en esa relación sur-sur que incluye no solo a nosotros y a otras organizaciones sociales, sino que también incluye a aquellos gobiernos que faciliten el proceso de acercamiento con las alianzas. En ese sentido debemos tener muy claridad los objetivos y los intereses que debemos de establecer en ese proceso de relación sin perder nuestra identidad como fe. Entonces, ese es un aspecto importante que hay que rescatar en América Latina y el Caribe. El encuentro que tuvimos en julio y agosto en El Salvador, todos los foros de América Latina y el Caribe, ratificamos este proceso, ratificamos que tenemos capacidades de incidencia, tenemos temáticas comunes, como se planteó Tomasita, pero también hay nuevos retos. Un reto importante es de la justicia, que hay que, después de conflictos armados, hay que empezar a ver cómo continuamos con el tema de la justicia, cómo profundizamos el tema, en el caso de ahora de Colombia, cómo damos un respaldo a esa y socializar la experiencia existente sobre el tema. Entonces, esos son como puntos importantes que hemos traído desde la Alianza de América Latina y el Caribe, que quisimos presentárselo en las diapositivas que ustedes vieron. Y un tema muy fuerte es el tema de cambio climático, que está afectando tanto agua, producción, migración interna de personas que están metidos, y que debe ser un punto importante en nuestra discusión como alianza y accionar.
Join me in thanking them.
Thank you very much. Certainly the celebration moments are among the highlights of our days. So today we have quite a lot to do. This is a reporting and a decision-making day. We already started this morning in 20 parallel join hand sessions. And no doubt it was difficult for you to choose one of those 20. Everybody said, boy, I'd love to be going to 2 or 3 of these. But as you've been doing in the last couple of days, make sure that you find out what happened in the other ones, in the breaks and the lunches. So I'm sure people are happy to share some of the conclusions and the discussions that they had. We're going now into the regional meeting reporting. After this, we'll be looking at the report from the learning committees, and then we'll be ending our day with the report from Membership and Nominations Committee and our elections. Please stay with us today, because while we've allocated a certain amount of time to these discussions, they might go quicker, they might take a little longer, and so we would hate for you to miss anything. So we're just asking you to please kind of stay with us today. This first session on the regional reports is going to go as follows. In a moment, we're going to see a video that we've put together, which puts together each of the 6 reports. 5 of them are in English, and 1 of them is in Spanish. So if you want to, you can make sure that you've got your translation equipment at hand. They will all be translated as everything else has been. After we hear those reports, we're going to open the floor. At that time, I'm going to invite our speakers who are representing their regional groups, but certainly there are many members of the regional groups here. And I'm going to ask you if you have any questions or comments about that, especially to look across the 6 reports to see if there are any patterns emerging, especially potentially when it comes to the implementation of the new strategic plan. So we'll open the floor to hear from you, and if our speakers would like to answer questions, if there are any, we'll have some time to do that. So that's the way it's going to work. So again, listen across all of them and see if there's something that's bubbling up to the surface in these, especially when it comes to what we can do together for the strategic plan. So now I'm going to give the cue for the video, and fingers crossed, it's going to be perfect.
Regional group. And first of all, I just want to say that we had a very productive and interactive European regional meeting. During these 3 sessions we've been sitting together, I think there was a good spirit in the room, and there was a clear commitment from all European ACT members to further strengthen the alliance in the next 4 years. We're happy that we were able to come to a consensus on the 3 candidates, the 3 Western European candidates that we will send to the governing board. They were all affirmed, as well as our Eastern European candidates. And that was a major achievement from the European regional meeting. We were not able to make up our minds as to the future regional representation to the governing board, so that is a discussion that we need to continue at the next year's Europe Forum that will be held in Brussels in May. It's clear from the discussions we have had during these 3 days that there is a strong commitment to implementing the global strategic plan for the ACT Alliance, and that we will contribute as European ACT members in building a strong and robust alliance. Of course, the sustainable funding is key and essential for us as European members, that we will contribute to that. We think we also play a very important role in strengthening the national and regional forums, and to go for joint strategizing and joint programming, and that presents challenges to us as well. we still have organizational mindsets, and we really have to think in terms of how to harmonize our own organizational strategies, our own strategy for Europe with the Global ACT Alliance strategic plan. We agree that climate change advocacy will be a very important topic in the next years to come. We talked a lot about achieving an effective emergency response as well, and the revision of the emergency response mechanism next year will be an important endeavor. We believe that we have to invest a lot in building good relationships between ACT members and the churches. And the findings from the Malawi consultation in September are important for many European ACT members in terms of the future relationship between ACT and the World Council of Churches. Thank you.
I'm Elizabeth Zimba Chisiwa. I'm here representing the Africa region. We have had a fruitful discussion this morning, and it is in consideration of the unique challenges that each continent, each region has, that we had to come together, and we have been focusing on the strategic plan, on the strategic direction of ACT Alliance in general, and we are looking at this strategic plan in the context of Africa. All in all, we do appreciate the way the aims have been put. The themes of the strategic plan are very clear, very relevant, and we have been discussing on how we are going to implement this strategic plan. We are also looking at challenges that we need to foresee and get strategies early enough. We do appreciate the aim of having community resilience, issues of human dignity, issues of a sustainable environment, and also an enabling, robust alliance that has the capacity to deliver on our three main aims. We see the issue of advocacy for good governance, advocacy and for policies, putting in place policies, but also ensuring that these policies are implemented so that we overcome the disruptions that take place in the communities. Under human dignity, we are looking at issues of peace and security. We are looking at issues of gender. We are looking at peace, healing, reconciliation, and empowerment of the people. The people should be empowered to be able to own their development processes and be able to respond and be able to participate. We are also looking at a robust alliance where we want to strengthen the forums of the alliance, both at regional level but also at country level. We are looking at getting on board more members within the alliance. We are looking at strengthening the Africa region in terms of the alliance. So we want to have a strong Africa Forum of ACT Alliance.
I'm Ramzi Zananiri from the Middle East region, and we have been attending the General Assembly and its deliberations, and the focus today was on the strategic planning 2015-18, and we as a region, we met together and explored where do we stand vis-a-vis the future of ACT Alliance and us as part and parcel of ACT Alliance. As a region, we have already gone through the exercise of contributing to the strategic planning, and we have highlighted main sectors where we can handshake with the strategic planning in particular related to WASH, health, education, livelihood, food security, and these are key components of the resilience of our area to the strategic plan. In addition to the rights-based approach, where we have also envisaged ourselves being key elements in contributing to the rights-based approach, because we see it of a vital role to contribute to easing up people's suffering. But then again, we also depend upon our international partners, our international accessibility networks, etc., where we see that humanitarian law and rights-based approach or humanitarian human rights are not being emphasized. This is why we have a strategic plan on advocacy, and we are looking forward to handshaking with the efforts of ACT Alliance into that direction in particular. All of that, we see ourselves as part and parcel of ACT Alliance, with main focus on the human being, on making a difference in human lives, and being a positive catalyst in the contexts we are serving. And from the dimension of the sectors that I have mentioned earlier, there is a cross or a mainstreaming component related to gender, psychosocial, and disability embedded within our strategic plan that we have prepared as a region. Thank you.
I am Jayant Kumar. I come from India, and I have been a participant in the Asian Regional Forum. These forum discussions have been very, very useful in the sense that the issues which were discussed in plenary were given a larger time and discussion. So very detailed and in-depth discussion on the issues took place. Yesterday we discussed about the whole Asia representation from the Asia side, as well as also the election processes, etc. And today's discussion was more focused on how do we materialize or institutionalize the global strategy of the ACT Alliance into our national frameworks and all. So we have agreed and decided to have a regional forum also. So that's an expansion of the national forum. So there is a regional forum we will be having, and along with that, we will groups have been set up. People have taken responsibility to work out on working paper for discussions and all discussion which will take place, and it has been agreed that after the working paper is finalized, a questionnaire will be circulated to all the member organizations, and then after the feedback we will be able to focus on what is the area, what is the issue we would be focusing on and working on that. And after that, because ACT is also restructuring, decentralizing, they are having Asia office will be established. So once the Asia office is established, then it will be a coordination between a face-to-face meeting will be organized between the regional partners, and work will be, and then the future course of action will be decided.
Mi nombre es Carmiña Guerrero.
Mi nombre es Elena Cedillo y representamos a los foros de Latinoamérica y el Caribe.
Como región, reafirmamos nuestros candidatos para la Junta de Gobierno. De igual manera, agradecemos a esta nueva estructura el tener una oficina en nuestra región, de la cual esperamos que trabaje de manera articulada con nuestros foros, con una comunicación fluida y con el reconocimiento de nuestra diversidad a nivel regional y dentro de ACT.
Nos proponemos trabajar durante este periodo incorporando el buen vivir desde la perspectiva técnica y bíblica en ACT, creación de una oficina de incidencia y movilización de recursos para América Latina y el Caribe, la creación de un centro innovador, ecuménico, de justicia climática al servicio de los foros, impulsar la cooperación sur-sur, no solo en la región, sino también con los foros de Asia y África. Nos proponemos articular además nuestras agendas subregionales con otras redes de la sociedad civil, así como con el gobierno, con los gobiernos, para poder mejorar nuestros mecanismos de incidencia y cooperación conjunta.
De igual manera, apoyamos los pronunciamientos de Colombia respecto a su proceso de paz, el cual está desarrollando en Cuba. Este es un primer paso, pero el camino es largo, ya que debemos apoyar la construcción de la paz duradera en el país. De igual manera, queremos visibilizar la situación de Cuba, la cual ha sufrido un bloqueo durante muchos años y es importante apoyar esta nueva iniciativa de desbloquear y tener mejores beneficios de apertura para este país. Por último, dentro de ACT, esperamos obtener justicia respecto al cobro del IBF, donde no ponga en riesgo nuestras organizaciones ni el trabajo que desarrollamos en nuestra región.
Hi, my name is Guy Smag, and I'm reporting to you on behalf of the North America region. And I'd like to share with you some of the thoughts that we have on the strategic plan and on how we think it could unfold and some of the suggestions we may have. So the first thing that we noticed was the importance to develop some common indicators in order to be able to measure the results of our plan over the next few years and to be able to roll up those results. So we would be able to contribute to that exercise, and we would also seek some clarity on some concepts such as resilience. What does that mean for everybody? Human dignity, sustainability. So those terms should be clearly defined so that everybody is working from the same template. As a second objective, we think that it would be great for the Alliance to seek outside funding, essentially following a principle that diversifying our sources of funding could increase the sustainability of the ACT Alliance. So this is something we've discussed quite seriously as well. Regarding the income-based funding levels, we feel that for donor organizations it will be very difficult to increase the level that is present at the moment, but we should look at a way to be more inclusive of southern agencies and be able to possibly reassess the level of income-based funding required from those agencies. So something to think about in order to increase the participation. And one thing that we've also noticed is that there's some misunderstanding about the role of the Secretariat in the new strategic plan, and as such we know that the Secretariat and the Governing Board have done a lot of work in planning a restructuring of the Secretariat, but we feel as a region that we have been a little bit left out in the communication of that process, which as a result makes us feel that we are looking a little bit in a situation where the cart is being put before the horse to some extent, where we have a nice plan on the one hand and then we have a budget for a Secretariat without for us having really understood the role that the Secretariat proposes to play in the new strategic plan. So in essence, those are the main points that we wanted to share with you, and we look forward to a great next 4 years, and if you have any questions, we are here to help you out with that.
Great, thank you very much. Interesting to see how the different regions have customized the plan and their discussions, which is to be expected, and also some of the similarities that have come out of these conversations. I wanted to invite, in a moment where I'm going to open the floor for any comments or questions from all of you, a little bit of pattern spotting, but I just want to invite our speakers to stand up so that we can see where you are. Those of you who spoke on the video, just please stand up so we can see where you are. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. I think, yes, let's clap for them because it's always hard to make a video, but I don't think I'll make you guys stand up here in front of everybody for this. Now I know where you are. If we have any questions, we can invite you to reflect on them, as well as other people from the regions. So let me do that. Let me open the floor. Do you have any questions? Did you notice anything in terms of kind of coalescing of ideas across the different regional reports that would be interesting to bring into the conversation at this point? We've got some microphones around. We'd be absolutely happy to give you the floor if there are any thoughts or comments. Anything you noticed about these that would be interesting to bring into conversation at this point? Or you're just, yes. Yes, sir.
Merci de m'accorder la parole. Nous venons de suivre les rapports qui ont été effectués dans les forums régionaux. Et je n'ai pas bien capté pour les dames qui viennent de présenter à deux. Ils sont de quelle région? Je n'ai pas bien capté. Mais ma question, je vais l'adresser à ces deux femmes qui viennent d'exposer. Ils ont parlé de la sécurité. Dans les forums, ils ont parlé de la façon dont ils vont construire la sécurité dans le pays. J'aimerais savoir dans quels moyens, comment est-ce qu'ils vont faire cette sécurité, c'est quel genre de sécurité. Parce qu'ils ont parlé de la sécurité, quand on définit la sécurité, il y a plusieurs éléments. J'aimerais savoir quel genre de sécurité dont ils ont parlé.
Okay, wonderful. So the question about the Latin American Caribbean discussion about the security, would one of our two speakers like to give us a little bit more information about what kind of security, what exactly you discussed? Or someone else from the region can also give us a little bit more information. Did someone get a microphone just now? No. Please, can we ask one of our colleagues from Elena or... Thank you.
Buenas. En nuestro mensaje hablábamos en general de temas importantes y pronunciamientos, y uno de esos era básicamente el tema de Colombia, donde lo que queremos y lo que pusimos como región es la necesidad de seguir apoyando los procesos de paz, siendo esto un primer paso, un primer paso para un largo camino, que es un proceso de construcción de paz, una construcción de paz en las comunidades, en la sociedad. No sé si eso era lo que preguntaban o necesitaban aclarar algo al respecto.
Okay. Does that answer the question? It sounds like it's a potentially longer conversation. You might want to pick up some of the colleagues from Latin America to hear more about that. That's good. Thank you. Another comment or question? Yeah. I'm up here, so I'll give my microphone.
Thank you very much, and I think it was very good to listen to all the 6 regions on the issue of strategic plan, but also on other issues, including issues of how we can share in terms of resource sharing and to make sure that the alliance remains an effective and relevant alliance in the work that we do. I particularly wanted to comment on the contribution from North America on the issue of decentralization. And I just wanted to make clarity that we did try to do very extensive consultations in terms of the decentralization of the Secretariat. And it is important that there is ownership to the process of decentralization by all members. And therefore, I would say that if the North America Forum still requires further discussions, clarity, we are prepared to do that so that you are fully on board in terms of what the aims of the decentralization are. We have been talking about a member-driven alliance, and we feel that the Secretariat should not be an isolated Geneva-based Secretariat, but that we get closer to the members in ensuring facilitation of the work of the members. So, but that is something that we are ready to continuously engage in. We need, as I have said, the support and engagement of all members to ensure that the Secretariat remains very effective in terms of facilitating the work of the Alliance.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've got a couple of other comments. Let's go over here.
Thank you very much. I'm Sylvester from Uganda, and I wanted to say something about security. In the African region, we spoke about security, and we're looking at challenges that are now affecting us or facing us. For example, in Nigeria, there is Boko Haram. This Boko Haram have taken or have abducted over 200 children or girls whereabouts are not well known. We're saying, what can we do in the next 4 years to confront this? We're talking about Central Africa, where the situation is not clear, which started as political, now is turning into religious. Even in Nigeria, it is started as political, it is religious, so they are all mixed up. So in these 4 years as ACT Alliance, what can we do in order to confront these situations where religion and politics are confused and are making it very hard for the citizens of this world?
Thank you very much. So I'm going to give the microphone here. There was a connection to the last speaker.
Yes, thank you. It's just a point of clarification. We understand the decentralization of the Secretariat, but our point was that we were seeking clarity on what does the Secretariat propose to do in enabling the new strategic plan? What is the role? Because when we saw the budget on the one hand and the strategic plan, we failed to see the linkages. I mean, we know they're there somewhere, but they're not overtly explained, and that's what the kind of explanation we're looking for.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So I'll let the Secretariat see if they want to comment on that now. Paulina? Okay, we need a microphone just behind. I'm coming over there. We'll finish this conversation, and we'll come over there. Please.
Thank you. You saw that there was a little background document in your meeting package on the restructuring of the Secretariat, which I hope is kind of in a snapshot, giving some information about the rationale. Intentionally, we didn't want to make it the center of this assembly, because we felt that we are here to talk what 25,000 people are going to do in the next 4 years, rather than to talk what the 20 people are going to do. So therefore, you don't see it kind of in a major way fleshed in the agenda. But I'm really happy that these questions are coming up, because it helps us to engage with one another. I think that the restructuring of the Secretariat could be seen from two aspects. One is to kind of finalize the integration between ACT International and ACT Development, and to try to create a kind of staffing structure which is meeting the needs of the new alliance. So that's the first reason for the restructuring, really. And the second one is, it's really a resource transfer to the support which we are able to give to the work of the ACT forums in national and regional level. I think that when we started the alliance, we perhaps thought that, you know, the forums would somehow, you know, mature easily. And I think that these last 4 years have shown us that there are really some issues to be addressed, and many forums have been reaching out to the Secretariat to receive that support, which has been, with our very limited resources, quite difficult for us to offer in a quality way from Geneva. So these are like the two key backgrounds for the restructuring. If you look at the role of the Secretariat, I think that there is a role which will definitely continue, and then there is a role which will strengthen. So the role which will continue is related to the policy work, the communication services, the advocacy support, and the support to the humanitarian response. So that is something we definitely seek to continue. What we seek to strengthen is our ability to facilitate and support ACT forums and initiatives of members. So there may be member coalitions who seek to achieve something together in different regions, and we would make ourselves available if it's interesting for those members to support those initiatives so that we can really implement this strategic plan. Our first step is really to make a resource mapping in the regions. There is some tentative thinking where the regional offices or the regional presence could be taking place, but intentionally we wanted to come to this assembly and discuss with you and listen you before we make the final plans. So from towards the end of this year, early next year, we will be engaging further with you to talk about possible locations and hosting arrangements. I think that if you look at the work plan of the Secretariat for 2015, and if you read how we are kind of positioning ourselves against the new strategic plan, you will see that we are particularly trying to change our own way of working. So that's kind of very intentional there, that our role is very much about facilitation and enabling, and even in the global level, you see that we put a lot of effort in supporting structured networking of our members. So intentionally trying to facilitate you coming together on key issues and on key themes, so that then we can generate the added value which the Alliance can offer to its members. So in short, that's what we are after.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm going to go over to this side of the room. I think there was a comment there.
One of the issues that came up in the Asia Regional Forum, and as well North America just noticed it, was the conception of resilience. And I think it's worth reflecting on that. You know, it is a word that's becoming increasingly popular, and there's many different conceptions of what community resilience means. And I think it would be helpful for ACT Alliance to actually think through from its own perspective what resilience means. Are we talking about just preparedness for natural hazards? Are we talking about preparing communities for a whole range of hazards? Is it about being able to sustain energy for the future, for change, for adaptation, for coping? I think, right across the conversations during this week, there's been a number of elements that could be considered under that resilience agenda. But I think from an ACT Alliance perspective, it would be helpful to actually consult more with members to think through, what is it that we offer as ACT members? Who do we relate to? Faith leaders, faith communities, faith-based organisations? What's our sort of comparative advantage, or what are we best placed to do within that much wider topic of resilience? And that may be a whole range of things. It may be helping communities prepare for electoral violence, for conflict, for disasters, for displacement. So I think there's a huge area within that would help for ACT members to reflect more on.
Thank you, thank you. You go here to this gentleman, I think was next.
Yeah, my name again is Fidon Mombek from United Evangelical Mission, with a comment which transpired in the Africa region when we were talking about dignity. What I would like to emphasize, what we said was not to focus on the dignity of the people we work with on the ground only, but not to forget the dignity of the people when we are raising funds for them. This has not been very much put forward, and I know it is part of these values of ACT Alliance, but I, living in Europe, continue to be confronted and actually traumatized by some of these fundraising mechanisms which I see. We are approaching Christmas now, and we shall see billboards all over, people trying to get money for the poor Africans, especially the Africans. Our appeal is, let us not use these good intentions of help by demeaning people in the way we present them. In my own town of Wuppertal, I saw last year a billboard, I think from World Hunger something, with a woman in a farm breastfeeding a child, and they're asking for 10 euro, and they say now she knows how to feed her family. And I thought that was blasphemous. So please, let us not forget dignity also in fundraising in our own organizations.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
James Davis, the Act Security Coordinator. I just wanted to respond quickly to the two messages about security in Latin America and Africa. The Safety and Security Community of Practice is launching an appeal for security because we want to put a security focal point in each region globally. That will be linked up with the new Secretariat regional representative. That person's role will be to know the security situation in their region, work with the regional forums and the national forums to allow members to upskill themselves in the ability to manage their own risks. So that would be one of the ways the Secretariat and the ACT Alliance can assist members in any region globally manage their own security threats in that environment. So when you see the ACT Appeal for Security come out, have a good read of it if you feel it's something that you want to get behind. My moment to stump for that, say, you know, maybe help us out a little bit, and then we can put a security representative everywhere, each region globally. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think I had one last hand up, and then we can wind up this conversation. Please.
Soy Nelson García Lobo de Honduras. Y cuando veíamos nuestro plan estratégico, estamos desde Latinoamérica muy, pero muy comprometidos e identificados con el plan. Desde los foros de Latinoamérica hemos levantado y puesto el tema del impuesto. Y eso no quiere decir que no estemos interesados en que nuestra alianza esté fortalecida económicamente. Claro que estamos interesados. Lo que estamos buscando y pidiendo es que existan formas más creativas en el marco de la Junta, el Comité de Finanzas, el Secretariado y todos nosotros de cómo financiar nuestra alianza sin poner en riesgo la permanencia de las organizaciones miembros de la alianza, especialmente los que venimos del sur. Esperaríamos que realmente esa creatividad saliera a flote para que podamos tener una alianza también fortalecida económicamente.
Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much for your comments, your thoughts, you know, the things that came to mind when you were listening to these regional reports. We hope you found it valuable to hear, to get a little bit of insight into the discussions that happen in all of the different regions. And some of the threads that came out were on conflict and security, on the Secretariat's role regarding the strategy and the reconstitution, the resilience agenda and how to respond, and the question of dignity. So thank you for bringing those things to the surface in this discussion. We actually are doing very well on our agenda this morning. In fact, we're very early. So we thought that this might occur, and what we would propose is that we take maybe just a couple of minutes of stretch break and prepare our next session, which is on the learning reports, which would put us quite a bit ahead of our agenda. And I hope that will be okay with all of you. Yes? Okay. We need a couple of moments. We've got a chair who will be coming forward. We've got a couple of speakers. We need just a couple of minutes to prepare that. So please feel free to chat, and we'll also be putting on some of the nice selfies that we have. So we'll see you back in just 2 or 3 minutes.
This is the special session. This is the session about learning. We will receive the learning report of the learning committee. And I will moderate in Spanish. Good? Entonces, me quiero presentar. Mi nombre es Humberto Siquilla. Soy de Argentina, director general de CREAS. CREAS es una organización ecuménica latinoamericana de servicio y de capacitación. Y en esta mañana vamos a recibir en esta sesión lo que es el informe del Comité de Aprendizaje. Y me gustaría, antes de recibir el informe, presentar a quienes han presidido el comité. Y a mi lado tengo al obispo Massimango Katanda, que es obispo de la Iglesia Anglicana de Congo y además es presidente de la Junta Directiva de la Oficina Ecuménica para la Ayuda al Desarrollo, organización miembro de Acta Alianza basada en lo que es la parte de la República Dominicana, la República de Congo y de Goma. El obispo ha presidido junto con Arshinta, quien es de Indonesia, de la organización YAKUN Indonesia, y además es directora del programa de rehabilitación de YAKUN, del Centro de Rehabilitación de YAKUN para las personas con capacidades diferentes. Así que muchas gracias, Arshinta y el obispo Simango. Además, quisiera pedir a aquellos que estuvieron en el comité de aprendizaje que se pongan de pie, así los podemos identificar en la plenaria. Por favor, podemos dar un aplauso al comité. Por lo tanto, prestemos mucha atención al trabajo, al informe que vamos a recibir y que nos va a ser presentado por el obispo Simango. Por favor.
Thank you, moderator. As you It's okay? Okay, it's okay. I'm the chair of the Committee on Learning, together with Ashita here from Yakum in Indonesia. I'm here to present to you the report from the Committee on Learning, including some recommendations which we bring to the Assembly for your consideration and approval. We met yesterday afternoon and spent time together discussing the report from the Governing Board, analyzing the learnings from the past from here, generated from the plenary sessions and the regional meetings yearly in the week. The first recommendation is that we recommend that the Assembly receives and adopts the report from the Governing Board, including the finance report. While we are happy to make this recommendation, we should note to the Assembly that in our committee discussions, we had two specific issues that we have requested the new Governing Board to take into consideration for the next Governing Board report. One, in the future, we would like the finance report to present more detailed analysis of the figure to ensure more transparency with the Assembly. Second, future Governing Board reports should address in more detail, with great analysis, some of the areas that are not going so well. For example, this year, the committee felt that some deeper analysis related to the functioning of the forums would have been helpful. In addition, we had closely categorize the learnings into the broad elements and they work together on developing 5 key recommendations. The 5 broad terms were, first, integrated programming; second, members and the forums; third, relationships with partners and the churches; fourth, a strong alliance; and 5, funding. The following 5 recommendations were based on the committee's analysis. First, we recommend that the Alliance works on improving its understanding of how to work together on development as an alliance. Second, we recommend that the Alliance invest in the strengthening and development of capacities to improve the functioning, visibility, and cooperation within and among forums, and support South-to-South cooperation to strengthen the Alliance. Third, we recommend that the Alliance continues to build on the strengthen the relationship with local and national churches in order to foster trust, ownership, and legitimacy for the work of the Alliance. Fourth, we recommend that the Alliance continues to build on and further strengthen its communication and the visibility mechanism for ownership and shared identity to improve image and credibility. And finally, we recommend that the Alliance diversifies its income sources by establishing a strategy for external funding raising, not drawn from members' existing donor-based and not competing with fundraising and regional forums. Thank you.
Gracias, obispo, y vamos a pedir a Gillian que nos introduzca en la dinámica de cómo poder intercambiar estas recomendaciones en los diferentes grupos. Gillian, por favor.
Thank you very much. So you've heard the report from the committees, and we will in a moment go to the voting on them to accept them. But before that, we wanted to open the floor to take any reflections from all of you, and then to also have a moment of individual reflection. So first, let's go to the plenary. Do you have some questions on this? Do you have some notes about the recommendations that are made? So we'll come around and open the floor.
Thank you very much. Thorsten Goebel from Bread for the World in Germany. All the recommendations state that there's a recommendation that the alliance diversifies, continues, or does whatever. It is obviously pretty unclear and leaves some space for interpretation, which may be good, and opens up the possibility that all of us are meant, which I think is a good thing. But nevertheless, in some cases, it might be good to think about again whose responsibility it would be to take this forward. I'm not sure how the chair or the moderator understands this. In case it is not specified further, I would assume that it's the future board's responsibility, at least, to make sure that processes are being brought up, which then would help with this. But my specific comment is to recommendation number 6. There's a similar comment or a similar recommendation in the report from the strategy meeting, as I see from the documents that just have been distributed to us. However, I'm very cautious with regard to this recommendation. I'm doubtful whether it is a viable strategy to say, as long as we do not fix our financial problems amongst ourselves, we're going to look for third parties to help us out. I'm very doubtful that this will work in the long run, because external funding is just as volatile as our internal funding, and I'm not sure whether it's saying we're going to set our hopes on diversification of funding is really the way to go.
Thank you. I'm going to pause there to see if there are any reflections on the comments from our chair and vice chair.
I think it's for all members to respond to this question. So I think this question has been discussing, and that was the produce of our committee. So if any members have an input, so it is for the assembly to decide. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your hard work. I am with the 5 first recommendations with one clarification on the 6th recommendation. I will go with it if it will be more clarified that any external funding will not affect our mission and vision. Because without specifying who are the external fundings out of our members, it could be a governmental money. And we have to be very cautious that those will not be guided to change our mission and vision. Thank you.
So there have been a couple of comments on the 6th recommendation. Could I invite anyone from the Learning Committee to comment on those? You could, or you can.
Por favor.
Yes.
Arshilda va a contestar la.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions that addressed to our committee, and has been said, it was elaborated within our discussion yesterday. And principally speaking, all the recommendation as such goes to the next governing board to decide whether certain structure or certain level will be the ones that are responsible to implement or to work further on the recommendations. And secondly, about the fundraising, I think we should, yeah. And secondly, about the fundraising, we admit this is a difficult subject, difficult discussion. And as you all remember, during our discussion with the strategic plan, it is mentioned there that as an alliance, we need to work further on the financial and fundraising work plan, which will be the operational plan that equip our strategic plan as a global alliance. And the details on the fundraising, how we are as an alliance work on those recommendation will be detailed within our next period of time. So that would be our response for these questions.
Okay, thank you very much. We had a couple of other hands, so we've got a number of hands. So please go here first.
Sí, yo tengo una pregunta de aclaración, aunque algo ya dijo la compañera. Estas son recomendaciones, en el caso para tomar nuestra decisión acá, son recomendaciones a quién se está recomendando, porque me parece que la Asamblea no da recomendaciones, son solo recomendaciones o son decisiones para ser implementadas por la Junta y etcétera. Entonces quisiera una aclaración en cuanto a el procedimiento.
Muchas gracias. La aclaración es que estas son recomendaciones que los delegados van a votar. para que la próxima junta directiva pueda tenerlas en cuenta. Ese es el sentido. Por lo tanto, se están haciendo las preguntas, se está respondiendo a estas preguntas y luego iríamos a la votación. Ese es el procedimiento.
Thank you. Chair, would you like to call for questions or shall I take questions? If you want to select.
No, por favor, continúe y vamos respondiendo, vamos recibiendo las preguntas una por una y...
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, please.
Buenos días, soy Eva Ekelund de la Comunidad de Prácticas de Políticas de Desarrollo. I'm going to speak English. To the recommendation 2, I think that we should not forget the policies that the ACT Alliance Board has adopted, and one is on the Istanbul principles on CSO development effectiveness, and there is a principle on equitable partnerships. And I think that all the forums and the members should commit to actually implementing these principles on development effectiveness and CSO development effectiveness. So that's to the recommendation 2. Because there are instruments in place and that have been recognized globally.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. There's another comment here.
Again, a clarifying question in procedure as regards recommendation 1. It seems that recommendation 1 contains recommendation to approve another document that is before the Assembly later in this meeting. And I wonder if that is appropriate or not. I don't understand the process. So if you could give some clarification for me on that, I would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Voy a pedir al secretario general que aclare este punto.
Yeah, just the last question, just to clarify that a report from the governing board, including the finance committee, were actually already presented.
Paul Valentin, Christian Aid, UK. I want to come back to the fundraising issue, because I think we need to be very careful as an alliance that we think the solution for our problems will come from the outside. I don't believe that we can sustain an alliance by tapping into resources that somehow we have overlooked so far. I believe that in the future, and hopefully in the near future, we will be able to develop specific activities that we currently cannot undertake because we will find donors that are willing to support it. But those donors will not pay for the secretariat. Those donors will not pay for the services. Those donors will not pay for assemblies. And while I think the board, and being a board member myself, the board is acutely aware of the realities that many organizations find themselves in, both north and south, as has been explained earlier. We need to ask ourselves, what is it worth for us to have an alliance if we cannot find the resources among ourselves? It's a bit paraphrasing John F. Kennedy by saying, do not ask what the alliance can do for you, but ask what you can do for the alliance.
Thank you. I'm going to take a couple of more comments and I can come to the front and take some reflections.
Pauliina Parhiala from ACT Secretariat. I actually wanted to go back to the question of Dr. Kauas on the identity of the alliance and concerns which may relate to external funds coming in. Just to say that as the ACT Executive Committee has approved in its last meeting a kind of future advisory group on fundraising, they have also indicated that they would like that group to come back to the board with a fundraising policy. So that policy would then clarify through which principles and approaches the alliance would be approaching external donors.
Dennis Fredo with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.
I just wanted to ask whether the comments that have been made are being noted for the reference purposes of the board. Because if that might not be the case, then we would perhaps consider amending the recommendation 6 to add something at the end such as consistent with the Alliance's mission and purposes. But I don't want to, get on to amending and all that sort of thing unnecessarily if these comments are being noted and taken back, for example, to, as Paulina mentioned, the advisory body that's looking at fundraising.
I might mention the fact that there is a minute taker. Actually, Penny is. Would you like to raise your hand? So she's actually minuting the conversations. Yes.
Some of what I wanted to say has been said by Paulina already, but I want to come back to Torsten and Paul in saying those of you who are familiar a bit with the Ecumenical Advocacy Alliance may have considered or may have recognized exactly that relying on external funds which have been even promised to you might not come easily or finally at all. And if you base your funding strategy and your funds and your budget on those, you can out of a sudden, within several months, end up to be illiquid or no longer be liquid. So, I mean, the core has to be funded from our own midst, and I just want to repeat what had been said before, and this is not only the funds from the northern agencies. I just want to remind you once more, maybe the urgency did not come through enough yesterday or the day before, that some of at least the European specialized ministries are facing tremendous cuts. So it is not a very healthy strategy to think we can go on like we do forever.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Uli Locher. I'm this guy who annoys you always with these formal things. I just looked at the recommendations and I see one problem. As a General Assembly of an association, you have to approve the report of the General Secretary and the finances, and that has to be a vote in and of itself. And it should also be possible to ask questions with regard to these reports, and it has to be a formal vote that in certain situations might have to be presented also to the authorities in Switzerland. These recommendations that come from the Learning Committee have a different quality. They're recommendations to the association, and this doesn't need to be formalized the way we have been formalizing yesterday the adoption of the statutes. So I think mixing those two things in recommendations, it's not the best way to go about it. My suggestion would be that we take recommendation 1 out of the package and that we vote in a less formal way than yesterday on the remaining 5 recommendations. And then we have a separate item on the agenda, which is adopting the financial report and the narrative report of the General Secretariat. And there we would have to be a bit more formal, I'm sorry, about the procedure of voting. So I would recommend to separate those 2 things, to make 2 items on the agenda out of them, and to adopt the voting to these changes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, coming back to this whole funding discussions which we are having, I fully agree that it is the responsibility of the family to fund ourselves, at least the core of the requirements, budget requirements. But I think nobody is disagreeing in this family that we do not wish to support. I think the whole question is, how do we support and in what different way we support? And therefore, I would very strongly recommend that it is not the, when we talk about the resource mapping, because this whole alliance is very rich, and therefore we require a resource mapping urgently, and then recommend that, based on that, we recommend to the funding group and the next board as to what way this family can really support the core budget of this organization, because it is not only the financial way, there could be different ways to support the alliance.
Muy bien.
Thank you.
Ok. Miren, creo que los comentarios han enriquecido especialmente esta necesidad de poder tener una política de sustentabilidad de la propia alianza de manera diversificada. Durante estos 4 años, efectivamente hemos basado nuestro financiamiento en lo que son los 4 pilares que tenemos para el financiamiento. Pero creo que el desafío es cómo contemplar una estrategia que nos permita diversificar y poder sostener el futuro de la alianza. Esta es la primera cuestión. Lo segundo que me gustaría decir es que todas nuestras organizaciones, y especialmente en el sur global, hay una fuerte preocupación por la diversificación. Y de hecho, hay una práctica de diversificación de recursos. El punto es, y creo que ustedes lo han dicho, el punto es la cuestión ética respecto de los recursos. Y creo que Alianza tiene los suficientes valores en los cuales hemos basado nuestro compromiso para no tomar cualquier fuente de recursos. Creo que eso es de una claridad en ese sentido que tiene que estar basada en nuestros valores. Y me parece a mí que también coincido con esta recomendación. La idea es que en el procedimiento tengamos una parte más formal de no solo haber recibido el documento, el informe de la Junta Directiva, que incluye el informe de finanzas en el primer día, sino que este momento es el momento en que además votemos ese informe como asamblea. Lo segundo, estoy de acuerdo con la sugerencia que votemos en bloque, teniendo en cuenta estas consideraciones, en bloque las siguientes 5 recomendaciones. Me parece importante que se pueda ver, y esto creo que es claro, que a partir de pensar, nosotros hemos recibido los informes regionales una hora antes, y esos informes regionales de alguna manera marcan la posibilidad de que nuestro plan estratégico ya comience a funcionar y que además sea lo más sustentable posible. Por eso, la cuestión de la diversificación de recursos tiene que ver con esa futura estrategia. Creo que, no sé si esto aclara para ustedes este debate que nos hemos dado en esta media hora, pero creo que es importante que tenemos que ir desarrollando una política que haga sustentable desde nuestro compromiso como miembros, pero también con una diversificación de recursos hacia el futuro. No sé si esto está claro, porque entonces podríamos proceder a lo que sería la votación. No sé si hay algún comentario, si John tiene algún comentario o si el obispo y Arshinta tienen algún comentario más. I just wanted to come back to the comment from Uli, and I think it's well taken, that in terms of formalizing the recommendation number 1, I think that's very important. And as the moderator has indicated, when it comes to the other 5, that is much more informal compared to the first one. So I think we need to proceed in that manner.
¿Estamos de acuerdo en seguir hacia la votación o hay más comentarios respecto de las recomendaciones? La sugerencia es tener un primer momento de votar el informe de la Junta Directiva que incluye el informe financiero y un segundo momento que sería votar las 5 recomendaciones teniendo en cuenta, en bloque, teniendo en cuenta los comentarios que se han compartido.
I believe there was a request for a comment. Would you be willing to accept that? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I move to have the recommendations 2 to 5 voted upon separately.
Exacto, esa es mi sugerencia, que tengamos una primera votación por la recomendación 1, que es la más formal de recibir y de votar el informe de la Junta Directiva, y las otras 5, lo que estoy sugiriendo es que se voten en bloque con los comentarios que se han hecho. ¿Es eso? ¿Está claro? Son dos votaciones, pero estoy consultando si este es el sentir.
No. Sorry, my motion was to have 6 voting moments on every recommendation separately. Thank you.
Muy bien, entonces vamos a votar el procedimiento. Quienes están a favor de esta última moción, de votar primero la cuestión formal y después ir recomendación por recomendación, voy a pedir a los delegados que por favor levanten su tarjeta para saber quiénes son los que van a votar y que vengan hacia aquí adelante, como hicieron ayer, por favor. Por favor, si pueden levantar su tarjeta para que sepamos quiénes son los que van a votar.
If you're voting, please could you move to the front tables, because we're worried that those sitting at the back of the room, we will not see you. So if you could come to the front, tables 1 through 11, if you have a voting card, please.
Entonces, si ustedes vienen adelante, vamos a hacer lo siguiente. Vamos a votar 2 posibilidades. Primero, las 5 recomendaciones que vienen del Comité de Aprendizaje en bloque, o la posibilidad de votar una por una. Luego, finalmente, vamos a votar la cuestión más formal de recibir el informe de la Junta de Gobierno. Entonces voy a pedir que quienes están a favor de votar las 5 recomendaciones que vienen del comité de aprendizaje puedan levantar su tarjeta verde si están de acuerdo. ¿Está claro? No, no está funcionando Okay. Yes.
Okay, let's try in English. There are two options. We have basically 5 recommendations from the Learning Committee. The recommendation 1 we take out because it's a separate item, and we also need to be able to have a debate on this report because there are questions, perhaps, there are remarks to be made. So that's going to be separate because that's an important issue of this General Assembly to acknowledge this report and approve this report. So we have 5 recommendations left. And there are 2 possibilities which we have. One possibility is to vote on these 5 recommendations in a package. That's one option. And the other option is the suggestion from Thorsten that we vote each one of those 5 recommendations individually. That means we would have 5 votes in a row. And the first question to you guys now is, what do you want? Do you want the package or do you want individual votes? So we're going to vote on that in the first place. But if you permit, oh God, this thing is getting worse. Yes, can we? Okay. If you permit. There are different degrees of formalities with the votes we take. Now it's gone completely. Okay. There are different degrees of formality with the votes we take. Those votes that have to go to a superior body or supervising body in Switzerland or have to go to the Chamber of Commerce have to be very, very formal and very, very precise. When we vote on things like recommendations, those things are internal votes for the ACT Assembly, and we don't have to be as formal as we've been yesterday. What we do, for instance, in associations in Switzerland, when we have these less formal votes, everybody sticks up their card, those who are against sticks up their card. If you see that it's a vast majority, you don't have to count all the votes. You just say it's a vast majority who accepts, because it's not so important whether it's 35 or 36 or whatever, okay? So that's what we're going to do with the recommendations. However, in order to know whether this assembly is fit to make decisions, we have to make sure that the quorum, as is requested by the statutes, is present here. And the quorum is, for votes of the General Assembly, 50% of the members plus 1, okay? According to whether you count or don't count the members that have been suspended, this quorum is 74 or 67. Yesterday we were 83, so it was not even a question which one of the figures would be correct. It didn't matter. And before we start into this voting procedure now, we have to make sure that in this room we have present, I would say, at least 74 members. If this is the case, we can then proceed with the voting. So the first step, and I hope we have people who count. Yes, there is somebody at the back there. But we also need, again, members from the staff who can do a quick count when we start voting. But there is one person who wants to say something at the back.
Dear moderator and advisor, I think I would like to raise a question of order, legislative order. One delegate raised a motion to vote separately the report of the governing board and the other 5 recommendations separately. It seems that a motion could only be submitted to vote if it has someone who support, also delegate, who support the motion. So, okay. So, okay, I didn't see the supporting. Thank you.
Okay. Again, you know, in a good democracy, you can also just have one or two people who say we would like to vote on that, and I think we should be open to that. But in any case, it's more than one person that raised the issue. Okay? Are there any more questions with regards to the procedure? Yes?
Carl Stecker from the ELCA. My question is not on the procedure, but it's even before the procedure. I want to know as a delegate, am I voting to approve the recommendation and have it implemented, or am I voting to have the recommendation forwarded to the governing board for consideration?
For the first one, which is the governing board report, that one would have to be the assembly accepting the report, so voting to accept the report. But the recommendations, these recommendations are to go to the governing board. So I think we have to be clear on that. It's the governing board. If we accept, for example, the recommendation number 6, it means that a strategy would have to be developed, and so this assembly is not saying go ahead and implement. It has to go to the governing board for the implementation of these recommendations.
Gracias, John. Gracias, Ulrich. Entonces, no sé si está claro lo que vamos a votar ahora, si no lo voy a repetir. Sí.
Thank you. Just 2 points of clarification. Reverend John, as you mentioned, it's a recommendation for the board. It's not a decision in which the board is tied to implement. One. Second, about the quorum issue. With all my respect, the quorum is only at the beginning and opening of the assembly. There is no need to take a quorum on each one, because if somebody will decide to boycott, that means that they are destroying the assembly in its middle. So the quorum is present at the opening of the assembly, and the procedures will go on. This is the Robert's rules in all institutions.
Ulrich?
I'm sorry that I have to disagree with this. The statutes say very clearly that the members present have to form the quorum. It's the members present. And present means present here in the room and not out at the pool. That's unfortunately why we have to make sure that we have the quorum. It's also to avoid, at the later stage, questions or insecurities. It's just a safeguard also that we are sure that this General Assembly is capable of taking decisions. And that's what is usually done also in assemblies in Switzerland. Before you vote, you establish the quorum, because numbers of people present vary according to the weather outside and other occupations of the people. Okay, yes, there is another.
I'm sorry, is there an answer to my comrade or colleague's first question of clarification? Is this for decision and implementation at the board, or is it for a recommendation for consideration by the board? We need that clarification.
Yeah. Yeah, just to clarify that these are recommendations which go to the governing board for the governing board to consider. It doesn't mean that once it has been voted upon, it goes to the governing board for implementation. The governing board needs to consider these recommendations. So I think we need to be clear on that.
Más aclaraciones, si no procederemos a votar la posibilidad de desdoblar primero votar las 5 recomendaciones y después la
la primera recomendación que recibe el informe de la Junta.
So if the procedural and the content questions have been clarified, I would like to hold those delegates their card up in the air who are present here in the room and who have the right to vote so that we can establish the quorum. And I hope that the people from the ACT Secretariat are here to count the votes. Thank you very much. There are three.
Ulrich? Okay.
Yeah. So the presence is slightly inferior to yesterday. It's 71. But if we take into account the members who have the right to vote, we reach the quorum and we can proceed now to voting. So the first vote is about the procedure with regards to the recommendations. And the question is, do you want to vote on recommendation number 2 to 6 from the Learning Committee in a package? If this is the case, please show your green card now.
Please hold your cards up high so the staff can count them.
It looks it is a vast majority. We keep counting, but we can ask, who does not want to vote in a package? Okay, I think it's clear. It's a minority. We have a vast majority who votes in favor of a general vote as a package. So the second question to you now is, do you want to approve that these 5 recommendations, numbers 2 to 6, go as recommendations to the new governing board, taking into account the comments and questions that have been raised in the debate? If you want to do that, please raise your green cards. Okay, it also seems very clear. Who is against this decision? I don't see any red card. Who abstains from voting? We have 5 abstentions. The result is very clear. You just decided to hand in these 5 recommendations to the governing board with a vast majority.
Muchas gracias, Ulrich, por la ayuda. Y ahora estamos en condiciones también de votar por la recepción del informe de la Junta de manera formal, que incluye el informe financiero. Entonces vamos a proceder a votar por la aprobación del informe de la Junta Directiva. Quienes están a favor, levanten su tarjeta verde. ¿No? Okay. Voy a pedir a Ulrich que aclare este punto antes.
I'm sorry to, but I think it is important, since this is an important document, this report of the governing board, it is important that the Assembly has the possibility to ask questions or make comments on this document. It's document number 11 in your documentation, and I think there must be a possibility to make comments or raise questions with regards to this document. So please, if you have any questions or remarks, it's now the moment to do that.
Gracias, Ulrich.
We have microphones in case anyone would like to make a comment or discuss.
Okay. I know that when the document was presented, there was an opportunity for comments and for asking questions. So this is just a procedural step that we need to ask this question before you actually formally vote. So we don't see any hands to ask questions as these, I assume, were clarified. So I hand over to the chair to proceed with the voting.
Gracias, John. Entonces vamos a proceder a votar para aprobar el informe de la Junta Directiva. Quienes están a favor, por favor, levantan su tarjeta verde.
Where's the team?
Please keep your cards high. We need to count these cards.
Ya pueden bajar la tarjeta. Quienes están en contra de aprobar el informe pueden levantar su tarjeta roja. Quienes se abstienen solo una abstención. Podemos conocer los resultados, Ulrich.
We have 70 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention, so the report has been approved by the General Assembly.
De esta manera, esta sesión ha finalizado. Agradezco tanto a quienes han presidido el Comité de Aprendizaje como a sus miembros y a todos ustedes por esta sesión. Voy a pedir que en estos momentos se va a tomar la foto, no sé cuáles son las indicaciones, pero Muchas gracias. Gillian?
Yes, thank you very much. We are now, before we go to lunch, going to take a group photograph. I'm looking at my photographer, he's just walking out. We're going to be meeting under the large sign, the big sign right in front of the conference center, and our photographer will help us set up, and we'd like to make sure that you're all there for that photograph before we go for lunch. We will be back here at 2:30. Please make sure to be here. We are ahead of schedule, and we will either move up the election vote or we will move up the strategy, and we need to have a discussion at lunch to decide which of those two we will do. So please don't be late for 2:30 to start again. If the steering committee could please meet briefly at the podium, we'll make a decision then.